AOC under fire today from the left. The left's eating its own. They're cannibalizing themselves, those damn lefties. They can't unite. AOC obviously always getting criticized in bad faith from the right, from the Democrats. She's a favorite punching bag of both the Sean Hannitys of the world and the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, really. And it sucks because it makes criticizing her in good faith feel counterproductive sometimes. And but I think this time it's very warranted. And this is not coming from a place of try to take her down, get her. But this is coming from a position of like, let's encourage her and know that we have her back and that she needs to not kowtow to the status quo kind of bullshit that she was elected to oppose. I've been a big fan of AOC since I found out about who she was during the 2018 primary when she was, running to take out one of the most powerful men in Washington, in Congress, third or fourth in line to take, Nancy Pelosi's seat once the rest of the old fucks die. And she succeeded, and it was amazing. And I think that that's a great blueprint for anybody that thinks that they're going to try to take over the Democratic Party from the left. Whether or not that's a tactic that's working, I don't know. The squad expanded this election, so who knows? But I think this particular story is a solid example of how trying to work within the Democratic Party and take it over might not be the best way forward, because clearly even she is susceptible to some status quo bullshit. So for the past couple weeks, Jimmy Dore, political commentator, comedian, has been pushing this tactic for getting Medicare for all on the floor of the House. And the tactic is basically this. Pramila Jayapal wrote a bill last spring, I think, and it's stuck in the committees. It hasn't been introduced to the floor, and it can get introduced to the floor if Nancy Pelosi gives it the go-ahead. As the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi can make that happen. And a scapegoat that I think some of the more left-leaning Congress people use is we don't have the support. We don't have the support for Medicare for all. We don't have the support for canceling student debt. We don't have the support for a Green New Deal. So we can't introduce the bill. And to a certain extent, they're right. There's not a lot of them. The squad is very small. It grew, but it didn't grow that much. The progressives, they only need 15 people to do this because that's the margin between the Democrats and the Republicans in the House. They only need 15 Democrats to say, hey, Nancy, if you want us to vote for you for Speaker of the House, we demand that you introduce the Medicare for All bill to the floor, Pramila Jayapal's House bill to the floor. How bad do you want to be Speaker of the House again at 80 years old? And then if she does it, they vote for her. Great. Everybody gets what they want. The demand is met. She says, I'll do it. And they say that, and that's what got you my vote. Justin Jackson, who is a wide receiver for the San Diego Chargers, and he's also been pretty active on Twitter in the past year, kind of in the Bernie left. So he tweeted this, and he tagged AOC. He said, if AOC and the squad don't do what Jimmy Dore has suggested and withhold their vote for Pelosi for speakership unless Medicare for All gets brought to the floor for a vote, they will be revealing themselves. Power concedes nothing without a demand, which I think is a quote from Frederick Douglass. There hasn't been any response from any members of Congress. None of the squad has commented on this tactic yet until AOC replied to that tweet. She says, problem with this idea is that there isn't enough thought given to step 2. The Dem votes aren't there yet, and with a razor-thin margin, the Dem no's are greater than the margin. So you issue threats, you hold your vote, and you lose. Then what? If you want to know who's opposed, look at the co-sponsor list. So a couple things to unpack right there. She's saying, oh, we're going to lose anyways, so what's the point? Well, then what's the point of anything? Then put it to the vote. Make all of your Democratic colleagues who say they represent their constituents who 70% of Democratic voters support Medicare for all, let those voters see their representative go on record as voting down Medicare for all, guaranteed health care for everybody, in the middle of the worst pandemic this country has seen in modern history. 250,000 people are dead. Tens of millions of people are out of work, meaning they are out of healthcare. Make them go on record opposing healthcare as they're getting kicked out of their homes, as they're losing their jobs, as they're waiting hours at food banks just so that they can eat. Let them see their representatives oppose Medicare for all while all of this is happening. Let them do it. And what is also implied here is that if we try to get concessions from Nancy Pelosi, if we even make a demand, even if we even say, hey, stimulus bill, or maybe we won't vote for you, just maybe we won't vote for you for speaker. What is being implied here, and which I think has been used against AOC in the past, is if you do anything to make Nancy a little bit angry, you are so fucked, my friend. She will do whatever she can and whatever she wants to make you as ineffective as a representative as possible, as an ineffective member of Congress as possible. I think she's speaking from experience. On day one, she was with the Sunrise Movement at Pelosi's office doing a sit-in, doing a protest. And there was a big sign of solidarity from AOC. And unfortunately, haven't seen too many of those kinds of shows of solidarity in the same way against leadership within the Democratic Party. And I think it's because she stepped out of line. She got reprimanded. They slapped her with the newspaper. And she put her tail between her legs. And she still is a fierce advocate for a lot of things that most of these Democrats won't even touch, which is good. Again, speaking from a position of being a fan of what she does, both in the way that she messages things and the way that she goes about a lot of things. But this in particular is frustrating because, I mean, yeah, ever since that moment, you don't see her criticizing Democrat leadership. You see her continuing to toe this party line of the only bad in Washington is the Republicans, you know, while Democrats, particularly people like Nancy Pelosi, are the direct obstacle to all of these progressive ideals. And so what I said about it is, you know, this is not a good look. The time to draw battle lines is right now. Pelosi is the opposition, and she reaffirms this fact every single day. What she's saying in these tweets, honestly, is an outright refusal to go up against the opposition. Because yes, the Republicans are the opposition, but that's like second level opposition. The first level of opposition is people like Nancy Pelosi. You can't take on the Republicans while Nancy Pelosi is in your way. Isn't the reason that you were elected so that you stop this perpetual like, oh well, we can't make Mama Bear sit, we can't make Mama Bear upset because then she might do something worse. Isn't that why we hate Trump? Isn't this all very Trumpian type stuff? Like, oh, don't upset him. She might go on a tweet storm. She might not, you know, she might rip up a paper behind my back. Oh no, Mama Bear, she's such an effective legislator. So what if you don't make those committee appointments? Then you need to be a thorn in their side. That's the reason that we're putting people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush. These are outsiders who are running on these platforms that a lot of the Democrats won't even touch. Make their life a living hell until they touch it. And this is what is so frustrating. This is the standard status quo. We can't introduce Medicare for all until we know that it's going to pass. Is that how a bill becomes a law? You introduce it once, it doesn't pass, and you never try to introduce it again. No, keep doing it. Do it over and over and over. Keep making these motherfuckers vote against Medicare for all. Keep putting them on the record until they either lose their jobs or they change their fucking minds. Because that's part of the job of the squad, right? To grow the squad. And if you want to grow the squad, stand for something and push for it and force your colleagues who are not your friends, they're your colleagues, And Nancy Pelosi sure as hell is not your friend. She is the opposition. So call their bluff. And if you put all of these other people in the House on the vote and have them actively oppose Medicare for all, they're going to lose their jobs. Start talking out against them. Rally people in their districts across the country. Encourage progressives, socialists, leftists to run and replace those people who denied your family, your friends, your neighbors, your teachers health care in the middle of a pandemic. What is going to motivate more people to get involved, to run for these positions of power, than to see their current representatives say, I know 250,000 people are dead. I know tens of millions are out of work and they don't have health care because health care is tied to their jobs. But no. Voting no. Make them do it. If the point is to be working within the Democratic Party to take over the Democratic Party, you're not going to take it over without force. And this is a moment where you have the leverage and you have the ability to use force. 2 months from now, you're not going to have that. You might be in your little committees and you might be able to push, a $15 minimum wage, which is already supported by the president. So you really don't need to worry about, you don't need to gain that concession from Nancy Pelosi. It has wide appeal now. So push for it. Make them vote on Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. And I want to reiterate that this is coming from a position of support for AOC, for the squad. I support them. And we need to be putting pressure on them to do this, to make demands of Nancy Pelosi if she wants them to vote for her. And that's why we're sending people like this to Congress. That's why people are knocking doors for people like Bernie Sanders and AOC, because they are allegedly going to be pushing for this stuff. And if you're not going to push for this stuff, we're not going to keep playing your game. You're not going to keep getting reelected. So members of the left need to be putting pressure in whatever way you see fit. Tweet. I don't even know. This is a problem that I have. I've got ideas for days when it comes to how things should be. How do we get them to listen to us? I really don't know. Most of them won't listen to us. I think AOC will. That's what I like about her and about the squad. I hate calling it the squad. It's so corny. But you know what I mean. The actual leftists in Congress. And you don't have to be nasty about it. You shouldn't be. She's on our team. So let's convince her. Let's convince her to change her mind. Let's convince her to at least pretend like she's going to hold her vote for Nancy Pelosi unless she supports Medicare for all. At least. That's the least that she can do, is make that threat. Make Nancy Pelosi feel a little bit insecure in that position. Because a 100 millionaire like her doesn't feel insecure a whole lot. And we need to make her feel that way.
This is Just Calm Down with John Schreck.